Over the last few weeks, I've been on a different journey. So while it's adjacent, I'm actually going to change my talk and not talk about the thing that's in the brochure. I hope you'll forgive me. I didn't tell anyone. Um, so instead of talking about branding, I want to talk, or digital branding, I want to step back and talk about this question. What is branding? What makes it successful and not? And maybe more importantly, does it even matter? And when people talk about branding, they interpret the word in a lot of different ways. Some often seem to be talking about a logo or colors. And for the purposes of this talk, I'll be using our own brand at Ueno to help explain some of these concepts, um, because a lot of the clients that we have wouldn't want us to give a behind-the-scenes look at their brands. So we have a logo, like most companies, um, and we have some colors, and we have graphic systems that help us create all sorts of branded materials and rules and guidelines and uh, type rules and examples, and we create all sorts of shit. Um, and we put this together in things like notebooks and business cards and more notebooks, and we made chocolates for some reason, and we have uh, T-shirts and swag and offices that we designed ourselves to be physical representations of our brand. We make objects like this is a light that we're making. We're making a stool, put on a conference, made a hat for that. We even did this. We make internal projects like this 3D interview where applicants can chat with some of our people. That's just a small part of it. We have multiple websites and we have about 250,000 followers across all our social media. Anyway, uh, so the question is that our brand? What I just showed you. And I think a lot of people will probably say yes. But no, it's not. It's not our brand. It's examples of expressions of a brand, but it's not who we are. So hold that thought for a minute. So why is branding important? Why does it even matter? As a species, we're not logical. Many of us think we are, but we're absolutely not. We're controlled by our emotions and our feelings. And then we work backwards from those and rationalize the decisions that we make. And most products are commodities. We don't pick the product that's the best or the cheapest. We pick the one that we connect with. I don't know if this was a campaign here in Australia, but it was in parts of the world. It was called the Pepsi Challenge. It was run in the 70s and 80s, but it's still technically ongoing. But it was a blind taste test where people got a sip of Coke, a sip of Pepsi, and it turned out that most people actually prefer Pepsi over Coke in that blind test. So everyone took a sip of each, not knowing what it was, and then they would say they liked the Pepsi more. But the thing is, Coke actually outsells Pepsi 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1 in different markets. So what the Pepsi challenge actually proved was that the Pepsi marketing team was really bad. They had a better product, but they were still losing. And I think the Pepsi challenge proved the power of branding. Because for decades, Coke has sold sugared water, but branded it as something completely different. They sell a commodity and they say they have a secret recipe, but it's relatively easy to replicate or even improve on it. But when I mention a brand name like Coke, Each one of you feels something. The same thing happens if I say Nike, Disney, or Apple. Same thing happens. You feel something. And that's what a brand is. A brand is a feeling. And a successful brand is a feeling built over time through stories that bypass the logical parts of your brain. So to help explain this, I'll tell you a story of why Ueno exists. And many of you may think that it's to make money. And yes, that's a part of running a business. It has financial reasons, but it's not our reason for being. It's not why I come to work every day. And it's not what makes me excited about the work that we do. Before I get to that, though, I want to tell you about an experiment. In the early 20th century, psychology was a new science. And a lot of psychologists believed that parental love was not needed, that all babies needed was food and shelter. So in a very controversial series of experiments, a psychologist named Haraldur set out to prove that love and connection are a critical part of our upbringing. And to prove this, he removed young rhesus monkeys from their mothers at birth. He isolated them and gave them access to a very crude doll that could feed the monkeys. The doll had a bottle with milk. And if the theory of the day was true, then the monkeys would be fine because they had access to food and shelter. But as you can imagine, the monkeys were not fine. They grew up having very serious emotional damage. So Harlow added a second doll, a second mother. This one had a more realistic face, and importantly, it had cloth that was similar to the skin of the monkeys. It did not, however, have any milk to feed the monkeys. But the baby monkeys spent a lot more time with their cloth mother than with their wire mother. They got their food from the wire mother, but they got safety and comfort and belonging from their cloth mother. The result of the Harlow experiment was at the time groundbreaking, because although we all instinctively know this, Harlow proved that monkeys, and by extension humans, don't just have functional needs. We don't just need food and shelter to live. We need connection and belonging and love. That's a horrible story. But I'm telling it to you because I think we as a society have treated technology, the internet, digital products, in the same way that psychologists of the early 20th century thought about parental connection. I think we've been running a psychological experiment on billions of people all at once. And I think that at its worst, technology has stripped away all emotion. Much of the digital world is purely functional. And I think a lot of the results are starting to show. You can push a button, you can get anything you want, but it doesn't make us happier. We can talk to anyone at any time, but more and more people feel isolated. We should be more connected than ever, but we're getting more and more fractured. But I think technology can do so much more than bring us food and shelter. I think it can help us belong and feel connected. but I'll get back to that later. I've been fascinated by the Harlow experiment for a very long time. And the reason why is fairly simple. When I was 11 years old, my mom died suddenly in a car accident. The reason the Harlow experiment has fascinated me is because in many ways I'm like those monkeys. I was a very happy kid. That's a photo of me and my mom. I was very social, had a lot of friends. But like most kids, my mom was everything to me. She was the kindest person I knew. And when she died, it was like a light went out in me. I just wanted to be alone. I just wanted to be left alone. And I didn't want to talk about my mom. It was too hard. And for a very, very long time, I didn't even say her name. But time doesn't stop. Life went on. I grew up, went to university. I started playing around with design and technology. I found the internet. I wasn't a social person anymore. I had a hard time connecting with people in real life, but I soon figured out that I was actually pretty good at doing it online. I could create things like apps and websites and banners and whatever. And over the years, I often thought it's just a website. It's just an app. Why do I care? Why do I obsess? I didn't fully realize it at the time, but all of these were ways for me to connect with people, to help them solve a problem or enjoy a moment. And after about 15 years of doing this, I got a pretty big break. I saw an opening. I sort of cheated my way into a position where I got to lead a new initiative at Google. I was tasked with the creation of what became the Google Santa Tracker. I had worked on fairly large projects before, but this was the biggest by far. Over the next few months, I assembled a global team, and we made games and games and videos and all sorts of silliness. The project launched, and in short, it was a huge success. It was used by millions and millions of people in a few days. It was loved. People spent hours playing with it, and actually, it made people happy. I made people happy, and that in turn made me happy. I think it's easy to dismiss something like the Santa Tracker as frivolous. It was just a bunch of games. It was just a website. Why did I obsess over it? But I recently shared the Santa Tracker story on Twitter, and someone replied and told me their story. The tracker had helped them get through a hard time in their life. And when I saw that, it instantly reminded me of something that I think I had blocked out in the days, weeks after my mom died. Because I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just stayed alone in my room. And the way I processed her death was through playing a handheld Donkey Kong video game, pretty much exactly like this one, over and over and over again. It was how I coped through a situation that was well beyond my 11-year-old coping abilities. Mid last year, I started to really think about my mom again, because although she's never left my mind, I've tried to push her memory away, because thinking about her only brought me pain. But I decided I wanted to change that, so I sent out a message on Facebook in Icelandic. I asked for photos and stories, but mostly I wanted videos because I hadn't seen my mom move in over 30 years. And the post found its way through people that I would never have reached otherwise. And they started to send me all sorts of things. I got photos. I got a lot of photos. Here she is with her parents and her sister. She's the youngest one, sitting on her mama's lap. Here she is in a polka dot dress with a bunch of very unhappy kids. I got hundreds of pictures from all sorts of people, from different stages in her life. And for the first time, I even noticed that she looks a lot like my daughter. But then something really magical happened. For the last 30 years, I've only seen photos of my mom. I haven't seen a video. But someone I know shared this with someone that I don't know, and that person sent me a video. Then suddenly I saw her again, with me sitting on her. And she smiled and waved. She was alive and happy. And then a few months later, I got another video batch. This one was a lot longer. It was hours of footage. So I watched through it. Most of it was relevant. It was not of me or my mom. It was not what I was looking for. Then I found this clip. It was a video party. It was a birthday party, and I watched it in the camera panned. And there I was talking, being shy. And then she stood up and she spoke to me. And she said, "I'll come back and pick you up later." And I hadn't heard her voice in over 30 years. And I've listened to that clip over and over since, and all the other clips that I got. After all this time, I was connected with her again. Social media gets blamed for a lot, and a lot of it is valid. But none of this would have happened without social media. It's not just a website. It's not just an app. So that's the journey that I've been on recently. I've been thinking about the Harlow experiment on the rhesus monkeys. I've been thinking about my mom dying and the effect that had on me, about the impact technology is having on the world, about the experience I had designing and finding technology and how it led me to create the Santa tracker and the impact that had on people, even for a short while. I thought about how technology had connected me to people that helped me see and hear my mom for the first time since I was a kid, and about the connections that it can create if we use it correctly, about all the potential and all the good it can do. And all these stories and all these threads lead me to why Ueno exists, why I created it. Because we exist because we believe in its possible to deliver on this unifying promise of technology. We believe that it can connect us and help us belong, create real human moments of joy and love. It can help us process grief. I think it can make us our lives richer and more beautiful. I think it can make us more human. It doesn't need to be just function. It doesn't need to be just food and shelter. I think it can be so much more. So we're here to deliver on this promise of technology. We want to create things that are functional, but we also want to create emotion. We want to combine function and feeling in everything we do. Because we believe in a future where technology makes people's lives better, where they feel connected and loved. And it's our job to create that future. That's why we do what we do. That's why we obsess over everything we create. That's our reason for being, and that's our brand. How we express it will change and evolve over time. But why we do it won't. You may not be able to fully identify it. You may not be able to put it in words, but you should feel it. It should radiate through our culture, the way we answer the phone, the way we write our tweets, create our hiring process, and the way we decorate our offices. And most importantly, it should come through in all the work that we do with our clients. Because I think a brand is an expression of who you are at your core. It's an expression of why you do what you do, of why you come to work, of why you push yourself through hard times. And it's what makes the good times even better.